So I know that Bath & Body Works fragrances have received somewhat of a positive attention last year in 2022. They came out with some brand new fragrances, some of which have been on the darker, even boozy side of things. And I think brands on the designer side are realizing that boozy fragrances are doing pretty well. They're dark, they're spicy, they're enchanting and alluring. Here we have one that is fashioned around a very popular cocktail. This one is called Smoked Old Fashioned. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this brand new fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I tell you all about Smoked Old Fashioned by Bath & Body Works, a brand new fragrance which I recently purchased, I do want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel. And of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, or if you took something of value from today's episode. It would really mean a lot to me. So I know I've reviewed tons of fragrances from Bath & Body Works recently, and I've even done a few last year as well. It seems like lately the brand has really been churning out some darker fragrances, even though we still have like Ocean and Clean Slate and a lot of other like very bright, fresh, even citrusy fragrances. Here is one that is a bit on the darker side of things, and I think when I looked at the note breakdown, I recall orange bitters and vanilla and even cedarwood. So we do have some dark ingredients in this fragrance. Is that mostly what we can expect from this fragrance, vanilla and cedarwood? Well, I spent some time wearing it and I am finally ready to give you my comprehensive thoughts on camera. So let's go ahead and start things off with a quick look at the presentation. Now, in the opening of this fragrance, you are going to get the orange bitters. So you do have this slightly citrusy personality in the opening, but it's nothing like Ocean or Bourbon or some of these other fragrances that actually open up a bit brighter. And so you do have some other fragrances within the catalog that are very citrusy leaning, very aquatic leaning. Certainly this isn't one of them. And I think just by reading the name and looking at the aesthetics of the presentation, dark green bottle, heavy coloration here, you're not going to get something bright and citrusy and ozonic, right? You're going to get something that's a bit on the darker side of things. And I don't know if it's the color of the bottle and the aesthetic that's really doing this to me, but I do feel as though I'm getting something quite green and earthy, and I'm not thinking really patchouli. I'm thinking something more in the sense of like oak moss or fir balsam or perhaps even vetiver. In the opening, it was kind of dark and it reminded me just ever so slightly of Encre Noir by Lalique. And that seemed to disappear after like 2 minutes. And then I got something that was kind of warm and a little woodsy and a little ambery as well. So even though vanilla is listed in the note breakdown, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a synthetic form of like benzoin or labdanum in here to kind of create more of an amber than a pure vanilla, because it doesn't smell gourmand. It definitely is on the darker side of things, but I wouldn't say that it is a vanilla dominant fragrance. Now, the orange bitters that you get in the opening are going to be there for maybe a couple of minutes, and of course the citrusy aspects of the fragrance very quickly die out, and then you're left with this sort of dichotomy of green and sweet. And it's really interesting because this is yet another hit from the brand, I think. One of the other praises that I've given to the brand in the past is they historically have not been afraid to branch out into niche territory, so to speak, even though that's really kind of non-existent in today's market. We see a lot of designer brands that are churning out some really dark fragrances, kind of experimental as well, even going back to like Angel for Men by Thierry Mugler, which was a mid-90s release that was very charismatic, very bold and different. Here we have a fragrance that is also on the darker, more experimental side of things, but darker in terms of the DNA, not necessarily in terms of performance. And I think that when it comes to Bath & Body Works fragrances, we usually don't see fragrances that go past that 4-hour mark in terms of longevity. So, and these are, if you look at the box, it does say cologne on it, right? This is not an eau de parfum. It's certainly not an extrait de parfum. Even if you look at the percentage of alcohol, I would imagine it's something in the 80s. So I'm not locating it right at the moment, but I would imagine that in terms of the volume of alcohol, it's going to be 80 something, perhaps even in the high 80s. So it's a very low concentration of aromatic compounds. So you are going to get about 4 hours longevity from this one, but it does have like this earthy, slightly spicy, slightly ambery and cedarwood kind of a texture to it that I think it's really nice, and I'm glad that this brand is doing something on the heavier side of things in terms of the DNA and not just churning out one citrus fragrance after another, because we do see that there are a lot of brands out there that tend to play it safe. So it's really quite refreshing when you see a brand that is not afraid to delve into woodsy territory, boozy territory, spicy and even gourmand territory. And here we have one that has a bit more of a mature personality, if you will. And if you want something with a more youthful personality, you do have a eucalyptus-based fragrance that they recently released. You have Ocean, you have Noir, you have so many other wonderful fragrances. But even going back to some of the really old releases, I remember Oak and Dark Amber, and there was also Mahogany Woods, which I love. So I'm glad to see that the brand, over the many years that they've been doing this, they have remained consistent in terms of releasing a nice variety of different smells, not just bright citrusy based fragrances. So this is another one that I really think you should check out. I don't know if it was an online exclusive for a while, but I actually purchased this one in Staten Island. I went to the mall, they had it on the shelves, and I said, you know what? I don't have this one in my collection. I might as well pay the $40 that they're asking for it. And they always do deals, right? So you go online, sometimes they have their fragrances for half off. And in store, they were doing buy 3, get 1 free. I didn't need that many. I bought 2 and, I didn't take advantage of the savings. But in any case, check this one out if you do have a Bath & Body Works in your local mall. I think it's one of the fragrances that is certainly worth sampling. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, it's not the most unique fragrance on the market. I've tried other green ambery fragrances, so it's not like I was totally wowed or impressed by this fragrance, but I was very satisfied to know that this brand is occasionally releasing fragrances that are on the more experimental or niche side of things, even though the denotation of niche goes far beyond just releasing experimental fragrances. That's something a designer brand can do as well, but you know what I'm saying on a very superficial level. In terms of the longevity of this fragrance, 4 or 5 hours, really not great, but it's $40 for a 100 ml, so you can reapply at lunchtime if you want to make a decant or carry the bottle with you. In terms of the projection, it was great for the first half hour. It radiated within an arm's length. It did become an elbow's length scent right around hour 2, 2.5, a skin scent right around hour 4 or 5. So the performance does leave a lot to the imagination. I do wonder if in the future they would consider bumping up the concentration by another 5% of aromatic compounds and even starting to market it as an eau de toilette. I think if they really want to leverage themselves on the same level as other designer brands, I think that would be a thoughtful thing to do, even if it did mean, raising the price by an extra $5 or something like that. I think people would be willing to pay for that if it would remedy or ameliorate some of the performance issues. In terms of the versatility, you can wear this one dressed up or dressed down, I think. It does lean a little bit masculine. I think this is great for anybody of any age, but I can see somebody who is probably 25 and up really enjoying this fragrance more so than somebody who's under 25. I think fragrances like Ocean would really appeal to that demographic. And this one is great for, I'm going to say, every season except for the winter, even though in terms of the note breakdown, it would sound like an amazing fragrance for the colder weather in the wintertime, right? Because of the performance issues, I think it would probably work a little bit better in the spring and fall, perhaps not even in the summer. That's when you would want to wear some citrus-based fragrances. And in terms of the presentation, I love the name. I think the concept is cool. I like the aesthetics. The color of the bottle and box is also cool too. It's just that there are performance issues. And my final verdict on this fragrance is, I think it's one of the better fragrances that the brand has released in 2022. I'm glad that they are releasing some booze-inspired fragrances, and I hope they continue to do that, maybe exploring a variety of different DNAs. I think this is great. Performance issues, albeit, but I do think that they did something really cool with this one, and I'm glad to see that the brand is not afraid to delve into a wide variety of different olfactive DNAs. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell and give it a thumbs up. That tells YouTube that you like this type of content, and you'll see more of it in your feed. Thank you so much for watching. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.